Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to N5D Radio's Cosmic Awakening Show, where we are serving this galaxy and beyond. My name is Michelle Walling, and I'll be your host for the next few hours. In case this is your first time with us, I'd like to introduce myself. I am a certified holistic life coach. I'm an author and proud to be a guest writer and admin for N5D.com. And I'm also the webmaster of CosmicStarseeds.com and MichelleWalling.com. And joining me today is my Pleiadian co-host and Facebook group wizard, Rockin' Larry Lockin. Hi, Larry.
Hey, Michelle. How's it going today? How's the weather there down in Big T?
It was muggy today. Muggy and warm, but I can't complain. I spent most of the time inside, working. And I'm just feeling really good today. I'm really excited about our guest today.
Me too. You were mentioning in the pre-show about the butterflies and the solar plex chakra. I've got that too. And actually, it's really muggy here. And, of course, we're not used to muggy weather here on the Oregon coast. It's really muggy. It's probably about 80 degrees. Not many clouds in sight. And, yeah, we're burning up over here.
Wow, yeah. It'll be nice when it just cools down to that nice fall in between, where it's like 75 degrees Fahrenheit during the day and not too cold at night. It'd be great.
Yeah, that'll be wonderful.
So I'd like to start out by giving a very special thanks to our sponsor, Greg Prescott, our radio show host at N5D Radio that makes this show possible. Greg is also the webmaster for N5D.com, which is the world's hottest esoteric, metaphysical, and spiritual database on the Internet. N5D.com is ranked in the top 25,000 websites in the world. I would also like to remind you that you can follow N5D by liking and following the N5D Facebook page. I'm an admin on that page and try to keep up with the messages, and I also advertise each upcoming Cosmic Awakening show on that page so you can know when to tune in next. Greg updates the N5D News page every day. You can check that out by clicking on the News tab from the home page at N5D.com. There you will find a new article for the day along with that day's alternative news. And a special shout out to our Facebook friends, our Facebook groups, and cosmic family out there listening tonight. I'm a part of a great group I want to mention tonight. It's called Healers, Indigos, and Starseeds. This is a closed group with over 20,000 members. Thanks to Ron Dunford for creating the group and providing a forum where healers, indigos, and starseeds can share experiences with each other. I also want to thank the admins of that group as well, as when a group gets that large, it truly becomes a lot of work to weed out inappropriate advertising and shills.
It really does, and I wanted not to interrupt, Michelle, but I wanted to give them a special kudos too, because I post there, and I really like that group as well, and I'd like to send my love and support to them as well.
Yes, and I want to say hello to everyone in the chat room. We really appreciate it when you join us in the chat room. It, your energy becomes part of the show, and it sets the stage for exciting things to happen. If you'd like to be a part of our chat room, you would just scroll down to the bottom of the Blog Talk Radio page where you pushed play to hear the show, and then you just log in through Blog Talk, and voila, you can join us there. And if you have any questions and you're too shy to call in, be sure and type them in, and Larry and I both will be checking, when we're not talking, we'll be checking the chat room to see if we can answer your question that way. This week's topic is the false light matrix and how to revoke false light contracts. We will be discussing how to recognize the false light, how to clear yourself of energy vampires, and how to connect with your higher self, how to ground, and much, much more, of course. In just a bit, we will be bringing on our very special guest, Cameron Day. We will be taking your questions and comments in the very second half of the show. Our call-in number is area code 646-716-8890, and just be sure and press 1 to put your hand up to let us know that you have a question. Cameron Day's article on N5D is called "Why I Am No Longer a Light Worker," and it has inspired many articles on the false light matrix, as well as works from people like John Lash, George Kavasilis, Robert Stanley, Wes Penray, and from the Wingmakers material. Now, one of Greg's articles on this topic is entitled "How to Exit the Reincarnation System." And Larry, I was wondering if you had seen the Star Trek Voyager Coda episode video in that article where Janeway faces her father in the afterlife.
I have not had a chance to take a look at that, no.
Well, that's okay, because guess what? I'm going to explain it to you.
Oh, sounds good. Okay.
Basically, this false afterlife matrix is right in front of our faces. It's confirmation for part of what we're going to discuss today with Cameron. And I'm just going to say real quick what happens in this video that you can find on How to Exit the Reincarnation System on N5D. So the ghost of Janeway's father, quote, father, unquote, reappears, trying to convince her that, I'm just going to read this the way it says, that it is over and there's nothing left for her anymore. But Janeway is not ready to accept it. Her father tries to convince her that all her attempts to deny the reality of her situation will not only hurt her more, for as time wears on, she will realize how potent and destructive loneliness is, seeing the people she loves move on with their lives without her in it, being forever shut out of their existence. But Janeway is still not convinced, insisting that she's just not ready to move on into the light. She'd rather be there in spirit than not at all, because a captain doesn't abandon ship. As the ghost of Janeway's father keeps pushing her into making the decision to finally leave this world behind and go into the light, she suddenly sees a vision of looking up at Chakotay and the doctor, who are still on the surface of the planet as if they are trying to revive her body. A second and third vision makes it obvious her experiences in the afterlife are not reality. She realizes that the person lying on the ground on that planet is the real Janeway, and that all things that she has been experiencing since her alleged death is a hallucination. The alien being, which was posing as her father, finally reveals his true identity. He states that his species, at the moment of death, comes to help the dying understand what is happening in order to make the crossing over an occasion of joy. He states that he was being truthful when he said that it was a place of wonder, for it can be whatever she wants it to be. Disguising as her father, or generally as someone's loved ones, makes the crossing over a much less fearful occasion. Janeway doubts that the alien's real reasons for wanting her in his world have anything to do with everlasting joy, and demands to know what he really wants from her. The alien grabs her, telling her that she must go with him, but Janeway realizes that if he could force her to go, he would have done so already. She finally understands that he needs her to voluntarily agree to go with him, something that she refuses to do. The alien becomes visibly upset, returning to his own realm, but as a last warning states that there will be another time and that he will be waiting, for eventually she will come into his matrix and nourish him for a long, long time. Wow, that's scary.
That's pretty deep, to be honest. Yeah, that's intense.
On a Star
wow.
Trek.
Yeah.
No.
I think the Star Trek tells us a lot, to be quite honest. Yeah, that was amazing. Wow.
Well, and we're not here to fearmonger. We're here to inform, and when you have information,
Right.
It basically wipes fear out. I have a lot to say here. Really, I'm going to try to talk really fast because Cameron can only us for a couple hours. Um, to further expand about the false light matrix, Cameron Day's article, Why I Am No Longer a Lightworker, was published on N5D, and it seems to have a controversial and funny title that may offend some of those who have proclaimed themselves as lightworkers and channelers. So I would like to preface this show by saying that there is indeed a true force of the light that exists outside of the demiurge or the false light matrix. And we're not saying that all channeling is false here. But we will get into this, and then we will get into more about how to recognize the true light and more about this awesome article of Cameron's. The article itself has a video by the same title on Why I'm No Longer a Lightworker, and that's just basically a way to listen to the words of the article. But there's a part 2 video to Why I'm No Longer a Lightworker that has some important clearing techniques in it. I wrote an article around that video, posted it on N5D. It's called 6 Powerful Self-Healing Techniques. And basically it has Cameron's 6 healing techniques that he puts on his website, and I posted the links to each technique that go directly to his website and directly to the page for that particular healing technique. And each healing technique has an accompanying video to walk you through it. All of this is free, provided by Cameron, and that's just amazing, although he does do individual clearings, and we will talk about that soon. This is all provided to help you clear in preparation for the shift in consciousness that we are experiencing. So, Larry, are you still with me, babe?
I'm still with you. I'm having some computer issues right now, but yes, I'm still with you. I'm here to the bitter end, to the great end, so to speak.
Not bitter?
The better end.
That's really good. So I'd like to introduce, I'd like to read the intro for Cameron. It's a little lengthy and it's well worth it because it's a very interesting story, and it will set the stage for our wonderful guest tonight. Cameron was born in the 70s to American parents who practiced Buddhism. His parents were, and still are, very open-minded, loving people who gave him the best possible start in consciousness that he could ever have asked for. While he enjoyed growing up with Buddhist philosophies, some of which he still maintains, he does not perform the specific rituals associated with their style of Buddhism. In 2nd grade, Cameron realized he was from another reality, simply dreaming a dream in this world that he would one day wake up from. Shortly afterwards, he had his first lucid dream of being back home in a world of indescribable beauty, a world where everyone and everything emanated pure, gentle, divine light. In this world, everyone knew each other, everything about each other. There was nothing hidden, no secrets, and it wasn't weird at all. It was just how it was and felt wonderful. The knowledge that this amazing, transcendental existence was his true home sustained him through the many challenges he has experienced in this incarnation. As an only child in a city environment that he found somewhat boring, he went inward and experimented with intuitive forms of meditation and yoga. He quickly learned that his consciousness was much more than his childhood identity or body. He was always curious about reality beyond the physical world, asking questions like, what are other dimensions like, and what happens between death and when you reincarnate? Nobody had any satisfactory answers for his questions at the time. The curiosity faded as he entered high school, playing out various teenage dramas of unconscious behavior. Well, I think we can all relate to that. The teenage years ended with several self-created adversities that propelled him back into contemplation about deeper aspects of life. At 20, he realized that life is all about love and set out about finding a way to fully live that realization without much success at first. He started consuming spiritually focused books, and some of them sparked deeper insights, but he was not at all satisfied with what was essentially head knowledge. At 21, he dove into Kundalini Yoga, and by 22, he began consciously doing energy clearing on himself based on various books he had read, adapting the methods to his own style, instinct, and interpretation of energy. He soon began seeing the cosmic flush, which is a part of something that we'll talk about tonight, while in focus, although he didn't understand what he meant at first. During this time, he began to truly understand that he would always be able to rely on his higher self for guidance and knowledge. Cameron eventually partnered with an experienced energy worker doing remote energy clearings full-time for about 3 years. In 2001, he stepped away from doing energy work on clients in order to focus on his own evolution, although he continued doing energy work on himself, his family, and close friends. During those years out of the public view, he continued studying various esoteric teachings, learning more about how our subconscious beliefs affect our human incarnational experiences, and finding answers to many of his childhood questions pertaining to reincarnation and other densities of reality. He studied Gnosticism, quantum physics, human potential, the shadow self, and more as he plumbed the depths of his own potential and cast off illusory limitations, and he learned how to simply allow life to unfold at its own pace. In mid-2007, he began getting subtle messages from his higher self that he should do energy work again. He finally started listening, and in 2008, he was very simply told by his higher self, "You have a gift, share it." His website, ascensionhelp.com, is his endeavor to directly share his self-clearing knowledge with everyone who is interested and to offer personalized, one-on-one energy clearing sessions to directly help more people to embody their own true, divine/inner higher self. And so, with that introduction, Cameron Day, welcome to the Cosmic Awakening Show.
Welcome, Mr. Day. How are you?
Thanks, Michelle and Larry. I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
We're honored to have you on the show today to get into one of the most important metaphysical subjects of ascension and clearing. And I thought I'd go ahead and give your whole introduction to our audience for those who may not be familiar with your work. But I just wanted to start before we jump into your article, if there's anything that you needed to add to that.
No, I think that sums it up pretty well.
Okay, cool. So I wanted to jump into your article that we posted on N5D from your website, Why I Am No Longer a Light Worker. The title is pretty controversial for those who have found themselves wanting to call themselves a light worker and wanting to be of service and wanting to be of the light and wanting to do, to do good things and to ascend and to make that shift in consciousness. And that's all very understandable. Some people have a heavy investment in making a living or perhaps making a name in channeling and tend to get a little defensive about what you've written about. But I feel like what you have to offer can especially help these people in one way or another, because there's no really right or wrong way to get to where each person needs to be. And I would like to discuss first the basis for the article, which will then lead us into the questions that Larry and I have for you. And basically, for a basis, I know that we have like an organic earth and an organic universe. And if you wouldn't mind explaining what this false light matrix is that has been added and what has infiltrated us to create this reality that we're currently experiencing.
Sure, Michelle. So essentially, these beings that the Gnostics referred to as archons, I renamed them ankle biters at a certain point several years ago with an article entitled Never Call Them Archon, because archon means ruler, and I refuse to address them as such. So by calling them ankle biters, it gave them a healthy dose of disrespect, and that really sets the tone for declaring that you are sovereign to these beings. In other words, that they are not your rulers, they are not our masters, that they are simply what I consider astral parasites. That's usually what I call them these days, is just the parasites. Mm-hmm. So these beings exist on the astral realm, and they harness human psychic energy, human life force energy. They harness it, they drain it in a multitude of ways that we'll get into, and they utilize that energy for their own purposes. Now, in order to have a steady supply of that energy, they need human beings to be unaware of who and what they really are beyond the identity of their current incarnation. Because we all have a deep grounding, if you will, a deep foundational self that exists in this deeper reality that I call simply source reality. I also sometimes refer to it as the etheric realm. And I would like to just state that I consider the etheric realm and the astral realm to be two distinct realms that house very different types of beings. So the beings that tend to live in the astral realm, now not all of them, but a large amount of them, and the ones that are currently manipulating our planet and even solar system in order to elicit the energy harvesting effect on humans that they require to sustain themselves. These beings are extremely parasitic and what we would think of as psychopaths, in that they have no empathy, no emotion, no sense of care for any other beings besides themselves. They are also extremely hierarchical in their organizational structures. And they are master manipulators. They are probably the most adept deceivers in the universe. And so in order to continue the ongoing harvest of energy that they are benefiting from and have been for a very long time, they need to keep humans in a dualistic mode where we feel as though we must pick sides in contrived, polarized battles. In other words, the battle itself is being fought between two factions that essentially work for the same team and for the same ultimate agenda. So we have then within this hierarchy of astral parasites a group that poses as what we would consider light beings. They pose as angels that do the bidding of God. There's a being that actually poses as God. The biblical Jehovah/Yahweh being, the ancient Gnostics understood that this being was an archon, that he was a psychopathic, psychotic parasite that was impelling people to commit atrocities. So this hierarchical organization that they have set up with the archangels, the angels, then supposedly ascended masters underneath them. Then, of course, you have the astral guides under that as well. They have an entire cadre of beings that have been institutionalized in a sense, that have been handed down through various religious traditions throughout the centuries and just kind of repackaged a little bit for the modern day, so that people are essentially given a certain pathway that leads them to the astral realm and leads them to the information that these manipulators want humans to believe in and accept. So the beings on the light side of the spectrum, the false light side, I should say, they are feeding off of the energy of adoration and worship. They're feeding on the energy of a human being giving up their discernment and their free will to this being in order to receive its teachings, its supposed higher knowledge. Now, on the other side of the false dialectic, the false polarity, we have the dark team, so to speak. And this is where you have the more aggressive and, in a way, more honest parasites, in that they are very menacing. They feed off of the energies of fear, pain, and suffering. So when you put these two sides together, for a person that has no prior experience, they're going to automatically choose, well, not everyone, but most people, good people, people who have come into this world to serve in the capacity of healing and uplifting the planet's vibration, they're going to choose the false light when they're presented with these two choices. You have the horrible, evil, bloodthirsty dark side, and then you have what looks like very benevolent light beings on the false light side. But once I finally cracked the deception and began revoking agreements that I had made with these beings, they revealed themselves as just as parasitic, ruthless, and mercenary as the dark side that they had been encouraging me to engage with in a very combative stance. And so light workers / light warriors are put into this category of engaging in battles on the astral level, usually in the dream time, that end up draining that person of vital energy. So the light worker, light warrior, wakes up very tired after what should have been a restful, rejuvenating sleep.
Right.
So once I began,
yeah,
exactly. I think we've all been there.
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
Yeah, everyone who's still listening to this point who hasn't switched off probably can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
So once I began unraveling these agreements and plumbing the depths of the deception, I was, well, quite honestly, shocked, somewhat dismayed, and faced with the decision: do I write about this? Do I talk about this? Or do I just sort of tell people who I think are ready to hear it?
That's a tough decision.
It was
we had
a tough
to do that
decision,
too.
Michelle. Yeah,
we had to do that too. We know exactly how you feel.
Yeah, I expected a lot of negative pushback.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, some of that is there, but there has also been a lot of positive response from people who had been questioning that something didn't quite seem right. They weren't quite sure what it was, but they knew something was wrong. They knew that the teachings of whatever channel that they were following weren't really bringing them to a better place. I've had many emails from women specifically who have encountered so-called ascended masters that have told them that they are their twin flame, and then engaged in essentially astral romance with them. At first, of course, the women fall for it, but after a while they realize they're getting more and more drained. They are not actually getting the promised rewards from this so-called twin flame relationship. And interestingly, from these emails, which I actually have kept these emails private simply because there's a lot of very personal details in there, but I've seen a pattern where women have had the same Saint Germain, for example, telling them that they're soulmates. Ashtar is another one that's claiming to be soulmates of various women and then engaging in a parasitic dynamic with them over time. So the conclusion that I came to was that my previous critique of the realm of channeling was that most good channels get hacked into and compromised over time. That was how I saw it before I pierced this layer of the deception. Then after really sitting with it and plumbing these depths, it came to the inescapable conclusion that the beings that are channeling prolifically, but not really teaching in a progressive way, new concepts that build on the previous concepts, but rather they seem to kind of go around more or less in circles. So there's a little progression, but then it kind of come back to the starting point, and then they go through it again and again and again. And so these looping patterns, to me, are very clear indications that the beings that are channeling aren't even, quote-unquote, dark side attacks, but that it's this entire false light astral parasite construct giving teachings that sound good at first, but that ultimately lead a person nowhere, or even worse, lead them down a path of what amounts to narcissistic selfishness. And in this, I'm referring specifically to the various law of attraction channels that tell people that they are, first of all, creating the entire sum total of their reality, which is false, and I'll come back to that later. And then it also teaches them that they can have anything and everything that they want, and that to do so is a spiritual thing. And further, everyone else in the world who is in a bad situation or suffering, they have created that for themselves, and so there's no need to worry about those people, that they are simply where they are supposed to be. And so this engenders a very distorted view of reality creation, manifesting, and our interconnectedness, because every being is connected to every other being. Even these astral parasites, they are essentially our wayward cousins. I kind of think of them as homeless drug addicts looking for a fix. Now, with that understanding in mind, the greater truth is that every being on this planet is co-creating our collective reality. And now there are certain beings that are driving that co-creation. They have captured and controlled the minds of millions, perhaps billions of humans, and they are driving that creative energy in a certain direction. Along with that, we have the astral parasites who are influencing us to create in a certain way so that they can also harvest energy. So it's a dramatic oversimplification to say a single being creates the sum total of their reality. It's a co-creative process. Then as we understand that materiality is not spirituality, that's a tongue twister. As soon as we understand that, we realize it's not about me having everything that I could possibly want in the material world. That's not what I'm trying to manifest. What I would like to see manifest, and what I would love to see law of attraction teachers talk about, because I know the channelers won't talk about this, but I would like to see the teachers talking about how we can co-create a world where every single human being, with no exclusions, is housed, fed, educated, has all of their basics already provided for, so that that person can tap into their true creative intelligence. And when we get our global situation to that point, that's when we can actually consider our planetary consciousness to be ascended.
Exactly. On that channeling, I just wanted to make a note that, some of these false light beings also are the ones that are telling people that you don't need to do anything. Basically, that ascension is right around the corner. They're here helping us with every step, and they like to give dates that bring false hope and disappointment. They like to feed off of that disappointment, but yet they're the ones that always seem to string people along, that give them complacency that somebody or something is telling them that ascension is coming, and it makes for for people to sit around and rather than doing their work. And we're going to be talking about that work that should be done if someone is serious about having a cleared energy field to be able to raise into a higher consciousness.
Absolutely. And I write about that in both of the articles, really, No Longer a Lightworker 1 and 2. But it is a very insidious trap that assures a person that everything is done, that inner work isn't even really necessary for them anymore, that an externally applied ascension force will be impressed upon them or handed to them. And all they have to do is sit back and wait, and everything is going to just work itself out. Now, the reason that is so dangerous is because, well, first of all, it's a massive lie. And second of all, if all of the beings who came to this planet to help shift the reality creation that is occurring here, if they all just sit back and do nothing, then we will not see that ascended state of consciousness where every being's true potential is allowed and encouraged to flourish. What we'll see is more of what we've had all along, which is hierarchical, authoritarian, patriarchal domination and suppression of consciousness, suppression of freedoms, ultimately ending up in some dystopic sci-fi type of a future. And no one wants to see that. No one listening right now wants to see that happen. I'm sure.
No, and I would like to say to everybody who's listening out there, I went down the road. I went down that road. I remember very clearly George Kavaslis, one of my favorite people, went down that road. We had to learn, I think, by going down that road and being able to recognize it, to be able to do exactly what we're doing right now, which is to inform people of what it feels like and, how to learn how to discern, which is that very first time that you think, okay, something's got to be wrong here with this channeled material, and especially the ones that really start with dearly beloved, beautiful, beings, the really sweet,
the
mealy
syrupy
ones.
Sweet, laying it on really thick.
Yes. Now, Greg wrote an article called Angels and Archons that we posted on N5D, and basically the word arch, A-R-C-H, is in the word archangel. I wanted to talk about archangels, and I wondered, are all archangels of the false light, or could there be a being from the other side of the demiurge, which is this false light matrix that we're talking about, that's kind of like a software program that's overlaid on the organic earth? Can there be beings from the other side of the demiurge in the true light that is just like mistaken as an archangel because people don't know the difference? Or are there such things as angels outside of the demiurge that are helping us?
In a word, I'll say no, but I do need to qualify that by stating that the beings that exist in what I consider source reality or the etheric realm, they are what we would think of as angelic, but they will never present themselves as greater than us. They will never present themselves as a hierarchical member of some pyramid. What they will do, though, is they will assist in the way that they can. They will suggest in the way that they can communicate with us. But they will only suggest. They will never command. They will never demand obedience or worship or anything like that. And so this concept of angels and archangels, it's an ancient Christian hierarchical concept that's just been brought forward into what I call the New Age movement. This concept has been brought forward and essentially repackaged in a somewhat new agey way, so that they can essentially entrap as many disillusioned Christians and Catholics and people that are leaving whatever mainstream religious tradition behind, that they can be then absorbed into the New Age movement with familiar faces, familiar names, familiar trappings of angels and archangels. But the entire hierarchical concept of, you have, of course, the big daddy Yahweh at the top, and you have his highest level minions right underneath him, the archangels, and then beneath him you have the regular angels, and then who knows how many orders of angels. I know the ancient Christian philosophers have written at length about this, of course. But the point being is that hierarchical organization is indicative of astral parasitic consciousness, whereas in source reality, all beings honor and respect each other for their knowledge, wisdom, and experiences. All beings are understood to have certain strengths, and they step up when those strengths are needed. So a lot of the beings that are here on Earth right now, and some of which are listening to the show, we came here from source reality in order to break apart this astral matrix of illusion and smallness. That's one of the biggest ways that they keep people trapped, is they make them feel small and insignificant and completely worthless, really, in the eyes of the archontic astral parasitic God that poses as the creator, when he is simply one creative being that seized an opportunity to do something that hadn't been previously done in the exploration of creativity and conscious expansion. Is that him and his group saw an opportunity to utilize their free will to take away the free will of others, and to get those beings whose free will has been usurped to actually agree to that usurpation of their free will. So it's an insidious concept that no one had really thought of before that. Now, this is ancient history in terms of the universe. It's been going on for quite some time, but there had been a lot of universal history before that as well, and no one was doing that because generally all beings who have source consciousness understand that we are all interconnected. And so to harm another being is to harm yourself. And smart, sane beings don't do that. But these beings were bored. They had simply run out of things to try. So they tried something new, and they've been running with it ever since.
Mhm. Yeah, they have. And you had said before that the raw material is 80% accurate, about 80% accurate, and the best disinformation out there, it basically contains a lot of truth, but then there's always that one hitch where they're trying to sway you a certain way. And I've felt myself listening to channeled material over about the last 4 years and taking the truth out and fitting it into my big puzzle, because I've learned, to whatever feels right at the time, which may change the next day or the next, because every moment we're creating our reality and learning and connecting with our higher selves and getting that new software upload that we'll talk about in a little while. But I do like to still listen to some of the channeled material, because it's interesting that they're working for the false light, but yet we're getting a little bit of information that can actually help us understand certain things. Those of us that are here to help other people and to help them understand, because it seems that even though all the answers are within us, we still like to look outside of ourselves sometimes just to get some guidance and to figure things out in our own life. So. Yeah.
And that looking outside is really one of the major issues, and the channeling phenomenon very strongly encourages that, while paying lip service, of course, to the person using their own discernment. But what they're really setting up is essentially a narcotic effect, where the person coming back day in and day out to the channeled message feels a little bit of a high, a bit of comfort from the message. They do get a little bit of good information, and then there is the twist, that 20%. And so you'll find in most channels about an 80-20, where 80% of it sounds more or less reasonable. Once you've cut away the syrupy, sweet, dearly beloved stuff, when you get down to the facts, you see a lot of good facts, and then you see that little 20% distortion of complete distortions, or even the facts being just twisted a little bit so as to divert someone away from deeper questioning, divert them away from really going inside to truly go within and free themselves from all of these outside influences, all of the programming and belief systems that have been installed into their subconscious mind. All of that is generally discouraged in the passivity of the externally imposed ascension is what is continually brought back. And so in the raw material, they have the same thing. They call it the harvest, right? Where humans will supposedly be harvested up into a higher density. But if you really think about the term harvest, right? Well, these beings in the astral realm are very interested in harvesting humans and harvesting human energy specifically. So they actually put it out there in a pretty clear way. I was actually tasked quite a while back to sit down and really read through that particular thing versus just kind of reading through highlight material, which is what I looked at in the past. When I actually read the thing through, I made it about a third of the way through, and to the point where I couldn't take it anymore because it was bothering me too heavily to even continue down that particular path. And of course, the thing is, all of the people that are channeling these beings have the best intents, and to me that's one of the more tragic aspects of it. They want to do good. They want to bring through empowering information, and they are tuning their receivers to receive something wonderful, and they're given something that sounds quite wonderful, but once it's really delved into, when you plumb those depths, there's that 20% of, ooh, this is coming from an astral being that does not have my best interests in heart.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hey, Cameron, I had a question for you because I kind of consider myself to be a Pleiadian contactee, even though I don't channel. I consider most of my information coming from kind of a source telepathy standpoint. What I wanted to ask you was, though, about Barbara Marciniak. One, have you had a chance to read both of her books, Bringers of the Dawn and Earth, the Living Library? And what is your overall take on Barbara Marciniak's material?
I read Bringers of the Dawn back in the 90s. I liked it at the time. I haven't really gone back to it, so I can't give you a categorical, my truly informed opinion. When I think back at the content of Bringers of the Dawn, there's kind of was a bit of a mix. There was definitely some great information in there. There was some information that over time proved to be inaccurate. And there was a little bit of that, the wave is coming, but it did have a nice aspect to it of tasking the individual to do their work and to raise their level of awareness. So I can't say categorically yay or nay. And as far as Pleiadians go, I'm sure there's a lot of nice Pleiadians, and I suspect there's probably some that aren't so nice.
Yeah, so I would totally agree with you on that. Yeah, I agree. And the thing about Barbara Marciniak's work is, instead of predictions, it was more innate possibilities that she gave. Well, if we went down this road, this is what would happen. If we go down this road, that's what's going to happen. So I think for me, that's kind of what sets her material apart from a lot of the channelers or a lot of people that claim that they're receiving information from these other beings. So I just kind of wanted to get your take on that, and I really appreciate your honesty. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, I would like to be able to give you a more detailed answer, but it's been a long time since I read her book.
Now, Cameron, you said that some people have incarnated lifetime after lifetime to set up the false grid. And so with that, when you pull yourself out and you look at things from a higher perspective, they're basically serving Creator, because everything comes from, one ultimate source creator, and this part is allowed in our experience. And, for some reason, I just found myself wondering, when I first started awakening, I was really into the New Age and false light stuff until I really started realizing that the false promises, just kept coming and coming, and I didn't understand what we were doing wrong, and I just really hoped that, I wasn't one of those incarnated to set up this false light grid to help other people. But my real question is, because I don't think I am, but my real question is, because if I was, then I wouldn't be here right now on this show. But these people that did come and to set up the false light grid, what is their service to us in that, and will they be given the opportunity to make, to turn, to change, to make a different choice?
Now, I do want to clarify just a little bit. Earlier, when I was referring to beings that have incarnated here from Source, we came in to break up that false light grid. That was actually what I had intended to say. Now, most people that incarnate, let's say, from the astral realm, and there is a difference there between being brought up into the astral realm, given a light review, given a series of programs, really, being programmed to then come back to Earth and essentially serve the astral parasites in some way.
That was me. I was a Templar. I was all those things.
Right. And really, what it comes down to is having been fooled, having been tricked by these astral beings. Because, see, they've been programming humans through religion for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years. They've been programming them to go outside of themselves and to essentially go up into the astral grid in order to, quote-unquote, get into heaven. Now, this then results in the person going to the astral realm, getting that so-called light review, getting a bit of a guilt trip laid on them, having a bit of their energy harvested while they're in the astral realm, and then they're sent back once again with some programming attached to them so that they can live out and embody more of that, essentially that astral deception. And it can be as subtle as someone telling people to just sit around and meditate all day long and don't do anything, don't accept the world as real, don't try to change it because it's all Maya, that kind of a thing, right? So it can sound really good, it can have some elements of truth to it, right? Because we should be meditating, we should understand that there are a lot of illusions here, but nonetheless, this reality is real enough because we are all experiencing it, and many beings experience tremendous suffering here. And so as one being suffers, all of creation is affected. Now, from source reality, which is where I think that we are supposed to go in between physical lifetimes, or let's just say at the end of a physical lifetime, we access source reality by first going in. We go into our heart, and then we go down. We connect into the heart of the planet, and that's why the grounding exercise that I recommend is engaging that heart-to-heart connection, so that every day a person is connecting their heart to the heart of the planet, forming that loop, forming that energetic circuit of heart-to-heart connection, where the person is first going into their heart, into their center, the core of their being, where their sovereign self resides, and then connecting to the heart of the planet. Now, we can, of course, do the same thing with the heart of the sun, the heart of the galaxy. These are all conscious beings in physical form. So, it's a pretty well-known concept that the Earth is a conscious being, that stars are conscious, and the galaxy itself is a conscious being. And at the core of the galaxy, there are beings that are working towards the ultimate freedom from this greater enslavement. But at the end
Cameron, that's what we want to talk about tonight. How the hell do we do that? What if we were to die tomorrow? And of course, we know from your article, from Greg's articles, from George, from John Lash, from a lot of people now that have confirmed, they could be waiting for you at the end of the tunnel in the light as a loved one, as that Star Trek clip will show, as a guide, or and of course it feels familiar because you've been there over and over and over again. So instead of going, first of all, do you go into the tunnel, and then at the end of the tunnel you say, no way, I'm not going back, you can't make me, just like Jane basically did with that alien that she was speaking to? Or do you not? Is there a way to not be pulled in there? Because I'm kind of feeling like with these near-death experiences that they're automatically just magnetically drawn in the tunnel.
That usually is the case. Now, and that's why I wrote about that in the second article called "Tell the Lords of Karma That You Are Sovereign," right? Because these beings that pose as lords and lords of karma are utilizing essentially emotional blackmail and deception on a person. So most people who simply believe the religious programming that heaven is outside of them, that they have to more or less beg God for forgiveness and clemency to be allowed into heaven, these people are easy picking to be just drawn up into that astral realm. So a good amount of clearing is needed, and deprogramming the mind from these false religious concepts. And really,
you do that now. You just do that now, and you won't be...
You do that now.
You basically, you raise your vibration in this lifetime. If you were to happen to pass before you're able to, have your your DNA codons activated and heal your body and live for 4,000 years. If you happen to pass before that, basically your vibrational level won't allow you to be sucked in there. Is that right?
It's a little more complicated than that, I think. But basically, so basically it starts with clearing out the religious belief systems, clearing out all astral programming that says that the individual is small and worthless, that heaven and the angels are outside of them and above them, waiting to judge them, or whatever other religious concepts keep a person bound to the astral realm. So to clear those out is the first step. And again, that heart-to-heart connection of connecting one's heart to the heart of the planet, so that when the body does perish, that person simply goes within to their heart and then connects to the heart of the planet. And through that portal, either the portal within their own heart or within the heart of the planet, they will simply step right into the true source reality. And they'll bypass the entire astral tunnel and all of the shenanigans that come after that.
So Cameron, I just had a quick comment. So these religious programs that a lot of us have within us, and a lot of people will say, well, I don't subscribe to any religion, I don't do any of that, but these religious programs really are so deep-rooted in our mind that sometimes we don't even realize that we're going along that route. You know what I mean? It just seems like so many people have yet to clear that out of their system, and it still plays into decisions that they make. And also I wanted to make a comment about, I know that I've heard Robert Morningsky talk about people having these near-death experiences, and he's always advocating that people turn away from that light if they can remember to and go the other direction and take their place among the stars. And I just wanted to throw those comments in there and see what you thought about that.
Yes, and that advice, I think, is coming from the same place as what I just mentioned. It's just that I think it's a little safer to simply go within, connect into the heart, and then just go down into the planetary core. Now, again, that's what religious programming is, trip people up. They tell people that hell is underground, right? That hell is inside of the earth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there is some astral shenanigans going on in the upper layer of the planetary crust, but when you get past that and into the core, when you access the planetary core, it's very different. It's just such a beautiful, loving being, this planet, that has so patiently tolerated the insanity that has been inflicted upon humanity, because she understands that it's coming from external programming, and that human nature in and of itself is not what's being expressed here. And so that connection, that heart-to-heart connection, your heart to the heart of the planet, by engaging that on a daily basis, it prepares a person for that shedding of the mortal coil, so to speak, that releasing of the body, to simply allow them to step right out from this reality and into source reality, and completely bypass the entire astral realm. Now, can that be done by going out into the stars? I'm sure it can. It's just that there is a bit of a net around this planet at the astral level. So to pass through that net can be done, absolutely. But
you just got to find the hole.
But you may garner some unwanted attention, and you could get snagged. So I just feel that it's a more direct and safer route to go within and go down to the core of the planet.
Yes, and we did make contracts, even though we made them under duress and we made them out of our supposed free will because we were deceived. We still made contracts that need to be addressed. We have to peel the layers back and address those contracts. And I'm going to talk about contract revocation, your 7 steps, a little bit after we finish talking about this wonderful topic. I have one question here. Is there a false fifth dimensional Earth that the harvest is trying to lure people into? Is that all part of the hierarchy of the heavens? And they set up all the heavens. They set up the dimensions of the astral realm and the heavenly realms. Where they send you to go after you go to the light. And we write about this in all the articles that I've mentioned. But after you go to the light, they sometimes give you a rest period. Sometimes they go ahead and you decide, I shouldn't have done that to such and such. I feel so bad. I'm going to go back and rectify that. And they can send you right back so they can go ahead and start feeding off of you. But sometimes they send you off to the heavenly realms to take a little rest. Mm-hmm. But did they create a false fifth dimensional realm or something that looks like Earth that they're trying to harvest and lure people into?
I do think so, yes. I have encountered these astral planes that seem very nice. They're very Earth-like. There's a very peaceful, serene type of a setting there, and the souls there are essentially on vacation. Mm-hmm. and having, like you said, a bit of a rest period. They do have to check in with their quote unquote angelic handlers from time to time. Yeah, exactly. to make sure. And in fact, one time I was in that particular realm, and I looked at what was at first an angel, and then saw that underneath that angel exterior was what we would essentially consider a winged demon type being. And I was like, ooh, I gotta get out of this place. So yeah, those are the guards of the open air prison, so to speak, in the astral realm. And yeah, they'll let a person have a bit of a rest, especially if that person has really pledged their dedication to the so-called heavenly hierarchy. And so they give them a little taste of heaven, right? Because that's, of course, the Christian teaching is that you get one shot and then you either make it or break it, you go to heaven or hell, right? And that the loving Father who loves you absolutely and created you will actually send you to be tortured for eternity if you don't do everything that he said. So the people that are really devoting themselves to those ideals, they do get to hang out in a heavenly realm for a while, and then they're told, well, look, God has a mission for you. You're going to be kind of like a junior angel, so to speak. They tell them whatever that they need to hear in order to elicit their compliance and agreement to go back and incarnate again. And they probably tell them something that aligns with their beliefs that they need to go spread the good word of the gospel, that type of thing. And so they go back and they engage that.
Okay, so is that in the fourth dimension? Is the astral realm is the highest level a higher fourth dimension, or can they go past that?
It's been my experience that there is an unlimited number of dimensions in the astral realm.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I guess... Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to clarify that a little bit, that I have a pretty different viewpoint on the, let's say, order of the dimensions and the realms of the universe. And I see source reality as being at the foundation of everything. That when we have been building realities on top, essentially, of that foundation. Now, this is a somewhat crude metaphor, and I do want to stress that this is more of a map rather than the actual territory, right? The map is not the territory, of course. Mm-hmm. But conceptually, we have been building on source reality, building and building, and that the etheric realm has been built on source reality, and then we built the physical realm on the etheric realm, and then the astral realm was essentially built on top of, so to speak, the physical. And then it is spiraled up and up and up from there into umpteen dimensions that house all of these beings that are enjoying this particular power trip, because, again, once upon a time it was something new. Now it's just something old and worn out, and everyone's really tired of it, and it's time to shut it down.
So, Cameron, do you subscribe to the theory that we're in a time right now where all these realities are like combining into one? A lot of people think that after 2012 that all these parallel realities and all these different dimensions are kind of combining into one. I'm wondered what your take on that would be.
Well, my observation is that the astral realm is being deflated. And that is having an interesting collapsing effect. Yeah, it can't happen soon enough for me. Now,
yeah, really.
It isn't going to happen super fast in terms of human time. As I mentioned, this has been going on a long time in terms of years. So that's another reason why I think it's very important that we access our inner sovereign self. Now, I have in the past called it the higher self, but to me the higher self is only higher because we haven't embodied our true sovereign core. So a big part of our energy actually floats outside of the body and generally above it. Sometimes it's off to the side a little bit or whatever, but generally that unintegrated self is floating above the person. So we pull that in right away. That's step one in self-clearing. We pull ourselves back together, so to speak, and we begin to then go into the core of our being and understand that we are a much more ancient and really eternal being. And so with that foundation in eternity, it helps us to be a bit more patient about the process as it goes on. Now, of course, I have plenty of impatience here in my human personality, but I'm also looking at the big picture, the long-term picture, and I do see a pathway to getting to that point of ascended consciousness on the planet, and a big part of it does involve that collapsing of those astral realms so that it cannot house the beings and the technologies, the automatons, the artificial intelligences, the various tools that they use for that enslavement. That has to be collapsed. It has to be emptied out so that humanity can essentially act from their own inner guidance. Most people are acting from external programming, and that is the main shift that has to happen. Now, as far as parallel realities and parallel Earths, I'm not sure. I've seen the occasional parallel thing here and there, and it does certainly seem to have just as much reality as this one. But that's not my area of most expertise or experience.
Well, thank you. And Cameron, we did have a quick question from the chat room. Somebody wanted to know what is causing the astral realm to deflate, and does this have anything to do with the rising Schumann resonance?
The deflation is being done by a large amount of beings who are actively working to erase the astral constructs that have been developed and the actual dimensions or densities or realms within the astral realm. We have to empty it, and it has to be done by sovereign beings. Generally, well, not exclusively, but there's a certain amount of power and authority within human incarnation, because we are, in my current understanding of how the assemblage works, we, in the physical realm, we essentially straddle the astral realm above us and the etheric realm, which is the foundation of the physical. So when we stand in our own power, when we stand in the power of our sovereign self that exists in source reality, we can say to the astral, no. We can simply tell them, no, you are not going to do this. You are not going to get away with this. I'm not going to be subservient to you. I am not going to be your slave. I'm not going to allow you to manipulate me. I'm going to erase. I'm going to dissolve and disintegrate all of your constructs, all of your tools and your weapons and your implants. I'm going to leave you standing there completely disarmed. And at that point, then you have a choice, astral being. I'm talking to an imaginary astral being right now. And so you have a choice. You can come back to the core of the galaxy, where you will experience a rehab program, basically. They will go through rehabilitation. They will be gradually cleared and restored to a place of sanity to where they can actually be then brought back to the deeper reality and closer to the source realm, back at least into the etheric realm, and become one of the family again. Because right now they're trying to pretend like they're not connected to us. They're trying to pretend like they're not related to us. They're trying to pretend like they can be as separated from source as they possibly can. And to me, the astral realm is the most separated from source realm that there is.
Okay.
So basically, Cameron, when we stand in our own power, we are infinite power. And that's basically what you're saying is in every now moment you find yourself in, stand in your power no matter what you're doing, if I'm hearing you right.
Yes, and that power can be wielded in very delicate ways. That power can illuminate our minds to have greater understanding and sympathy for a person who is in a bad place. Many of these beings in the astral realm, like I said, I consider them like homeless drug addicts who they've lost their way, and in a sense they've lost their minds. They've gone quite crazy. So I do have a measure of compassion for them. However, I won't take any crap from them either. So when we stand in that power, we can very gently say to any being, whether it's a person or an astral being, I see who you are, I care for you, but I will not be manipulated by you. I will not be your slave. I would like to help you to improve yourself should you choose to do so.
That's a great answer, and I really digging everything that you have to say, and I'm just so excited that you're here. And I have a very important question I think that a lot of our listeners would like to know is a lot of people have said that basically you need a physical body in order to raise your vibration and exit this reality. And is that so? And if so, what's going to happen to those people in the astral realm that have not incarnated as the astral realm gets diminished?
Right. So in my comprehension of the universal order, and by the way, I don't claim to know everything, and I certainly have room to grow, room to know more. I know enough to know that there's a tremendous amount to know, I've experienced enough of it to have a decent idea of it. But I just want to put that out there that I'm not coming from some like wannabe guru, all-knowing kind of BS.
I'm just picking your brain. And I probably have a lot more difficult questions than you thought that I would be telling you, but I'm telling you, I think a lot of our listeners are at this level where these are the questions that they would ask.
Sure, absolutely. And so you don't need a body to go back to source reality.
Good.
I honestly think that this notion of moving into a quote-unquote higher dimension has come from the astral realm as a way to divert people from tending to the physical earthly garden that we live in. This beautiful, abundant planet that is so amazingly rich with life force energy. Just life abounds here. I mean, even in the desert regions, right? Life manages to find a way to survive. This planet is just truly amazing. And it needs tending to. We need to tend to it. We need to see ourselves as stewards of the planet, as shepherds, if you will. So the beings, if a person dies and they can simply go back to source reality, then they've evaded the astral trap. They've made it, so to speak. It's not something that's far outside of us. It's not some incredibly difficult path or a ladder that must be climbed and where a person has to go through 100 different initiation processes to get to some seemingly unattainable goal. All of that to me is astral manipulation. So the beings that are in the astral, as we drain that swamp, so to speak, we will be bringing those beings into the galactic core where they will go through that rehabilitation process. And they will experience one of the many foundational parameters that's been put into play, which is the law of reflection, in that what you put out, you must take a good hard look at. You get back what you put out. Not that there's a punishment involved, but that the being needs to be accountable and to hold themselves accountable for what they have done, to look at all of the crimes that they have committed and to say, I'm terribly sorry. I promise I will never do that again. And I truly am going to dedicate myself to my own healing so that I can ensure that these types of crimes are never committed again in our reality. And so as they go through that difficult process of seeing their own reflections, really looking in the mirror and not just seeing a face, but rather seeing the entirety of the damage that they have inflicted on other beings in order to feed themselves. That's really what it boils down to. They're hungry. They're just trying to eat, right? But nonetheless, we don't want them to eat us. And that's really what it comes down to. So they need to see that, and they need to go through that rehabilitation process. So they will be brought into the Galactic Core as they're ready. I do offer all of these beings, whenever they come into my space, I offer them what I call the galactic vacuum, which is like a big tube of light that comes from the galactic core, and it will vacuum them into it. It will bring them to where they need to go. So I offer them that vacuum. Usually they will either run away from it or go into it. That's the two options usually. Now, if they're extremely persistent and they're committed to a very intense psychic attack, then if I'm having a difficult time dissolving and disintegrating all of their projections, then I will actually push them into the vacuum, and they will go towards the category of the more difficult, the more truculent, so to speak, disciples on the path of healing. They'll need that special treatment because they are still standing in that overly aggressive, domineering, parasitical posture.
So Cameron, I had a quick question, and it was actually something that Greg Prescott had brought up on another show we had. Do you think that life within this matrix, I mean, as far as free will goes, do you think the term free will is a con job and that it really doesn't exist within our matrix itself, but it's outside? So, I mean, do you think we've been sold this line of free will as far as the religious doctrine goes within this matrix? Or, I mean, I would just be curious to see and pick your brain and what you thought about that.
Well, free will has definitely been usurped, most assuredly. Now, they do, though, engage these little loopholes where they get us to agree to that enslavement that we subscribe to. And so that's why I wrote that procedure for revoking agreements so that we can begin whittling through these. Because it's actually pretty stunning when we get into revoking agreements, just how many agreements that we've actually made along the way. And further on top of that, beings in the astral realm in the dream time will approach a person and get them to sign up for even more agreements. So if anyone approaches you in a dream and they want you to sign something, say no. If they're trying to even show you, like, say, badges of identity or credentials posing as, let's say, some police officer as an example, right? Most people see police officers as authority figures. They'll try to come in the guise of some authority figure, have you read something or sign something. Now, sometimes they're not even that subtle. Sometimes they'll just pull a person into a dream construct that's not of that individual's making. They will put a person into a situation that will invoke stress in that person, and then that stress produces an energy that they can harvest as well. So sometimes they're just grabbing people and pushing them in, but usually they're doing so because of some ancient agreement that person made, and it could have been even in another incarnation as well, especially if that person was brought up into the astral for the whole astral reincarnation cycle.
Okay. I have a question from the chat room. Back on this thing about the people that have passed over, left their body here, they're in the astral realm, and they have not reincarnated yet. We were wondering in the chat room who it is that's helping them to do that rehab program, and the second part of that, is there any way that we can help them? And in my mind, I'm kind of thinking we probably are when we're asleep. That's probably part of some of our work, but I wanted to get that answered from you, what you thought.
Sure, and so it's all of the beings that are in source reality, in that etheric realm. They are working with these beings to bring them from the astral to go through their rehabilitation process so that they can then come back into the etheric realm.
Perfect. That's great news. Great news. Let's see. I had a second part of a question here. I wanted to talk about your wonderful meditation you have. It's a show on your website, www.ascensionhelp.com. It's under the button called Podcasts and Radio Archives. It's a meditation at the end of the podcast called Embodying and Grounding Our Higher Self. That's the name of the show. Now, this meditation that you have, I've actually been doing this meditation for a couple of years now, not only with the intention of clearing and grounding to the planet, but also to my higher self. But I've always used this intention to anchor the energies that are coming in from the center of the cosmos, coming to us, basically outside of the demiurge, helping us to raise our vibration and change what we call our software program. And the question I have is about the chakras, because I've been using this. Meditation that you're talking about, envisioning connecting each chakra with the planet, coming back up from the planet, receiving that energy, coming back up through these chakras, going to the higher self, back down into your heart. And I never really had done it, though, envisioning each chakra. I just envisioned the energy flow within my body. Now, on chakras, I know George Kavassilis has explained that he basically got rid of his chakra system. And because it's part of the false light matrix that has been imposed on us, kind of like all the dimensions and everything. And whereas I believe that part of it, the chakra system is in us, and that's how they can siphon some of our energies. But I was just wondering if we are basically flipping this around by using the chakras as a tool in order to ground to the earth and in order to clear those chakras and be able to run our energy. Or what is your take on the chakra system?
Sure. So in the past, I'd worked with the chakras because that was what was done, right? That was kind of the norm. In around 2010, 2011, I began actually working with what I consider the more authentic organic energy centers, which I call simply the three brains. And that's the brain in the head, in the heart, and in the stomach. I call that the belly brain. And to me, these three organic energy centers are far more powerful than any of the chakras ever were. And at a certain point, I did actually jettison the chakras. I haven't written about that simply because I think George does a really good job talking about it. And it's not something that someone should just jump into. They shouldn't just go, oh, well, chakras are bad. Well, I'm ripping mine out right now, because that will not be a very pleasant experience. What I do recommend is working with your three brains, head, heart, and belly, working with those energy centers. Now, I do have a level 2 of the self-clearing system, like you mentioned, the level 1 with the 6 major steps. That's all free. Level 2 does have a nominal fee. But in that level 2, I do go through a process of engaging the three brains, tying them together, unifying that energy flow from them so that the communication between the three brains can begin to flow better. See, most people tend to live very much in their heads only, and they're very disconnected, especially from that belly brain. They'll have focus on the heart center, but often the belly brain gets ignored, much to our detriment. So to work with all three brains is very important, as well as also to make sure that on a physical level that we're putting in the right things so that our small intestine is happy. Especially, to me, the small intestine is like the frontal lobe of the belly brain. That's the part that handles the majority of the complex tasks. So we want to feed that the right things and avoid certain substances that tend to be inflammatory, like grains for the most part.
Exactly.
Or organic rice tends to be okay for most people. Now, I don't want to get distracted too much by that, but I just wanted to throw that out there as a little tip for loving your belly brain, is to make sure that you're feeding it the right foods. So
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt because that is so wild. That was one of my questions, if we had time, that really pertained to myself, and I love bread. Okay, I'm just going to come out and I'm confessing to the world. I love bread.
Sure.
Now, I use a bread with no high fructose corn syrup, but that does not mean that it doesn't have GMO grains in it. And I know that. I bless my bread. I raise my vibration other ways. And basically, my body likes bread. And what I was wondering, since you asked it, we'll just throw it in here and then we'll pick it back up. Is that part of do you think that's part of my programming in this matrix system that I need to undo, is programming the brain to tell the body that it wants bread, because I listen to my body and I eat what my body asks me to feed it? I know that's a funny question.
That is
very
a
serious
funny
to
question.
me.
So, yeah, well, basically, I have recovered from a bread addiction myself. I was raised on bread. I was raised on wheat. And I was very resistant to the idea that wheat and grains could be having a detrimental effect. This was several years ago when I even first encountered that information and was quite resistant to it. And my body kept saying, yeah, feed me bread, feed me bread. Well, as I got off of bread, as I got off of the grains, like I mentioned, I do still eat organic rice. But as I made that transition off, well, the first thing I noticed was inflammation in my small intestine. And I said, what's going on? Right? I took the inflammatory things away. And the message that I got from the belly brain was that the grains themselves have a certain narcotic effect, a certain pain-killing effect, so that even though they're damaging the small intestine, they're also numbing out the pain that would normally be there from that type of damage. So when you take it away, now that actual damage is being felt. So I said, okay, duly noted. Little out there, I think, for some people, but I actually saw a doctor recently giving a presentation on gluten, and he kind of obliquely mentioned that, although he didn't really get into it. So I think that doctors in science will eventually bring that out as well. Now, I do, though, want to stress that you should be very clear and grounded in your decision to cut grains out of the diet, to essentially cut out all of the big grains. Like I said, organic rice seems to be okay for most people unless they have a lot of intestine damage. But before you make that decision, you want to be very clear about shifting your lifestyle, and that way shifting your food choices. And you also want to be embarking on an intestinal healing protocol, I would recommend even before you disengage the grains, so that you're getting some healing going in the small intestine first. I am working on an article about this. It's turning into a bear of an article, but I am actually in the process of putting something together that should hopefully help with that. And I just wanted to bring it right back around really quick, Michelle, to wrap up my point about the chakras, is that I recommend working with the three brains and utilizing those organic energy centers, and for a while just to disregard the chakras before doing any type of removal. So as you work with the three brains and you disregard, just don't work with the chakras anymore, they will essentially begin atrophying, and at a certain point it will be quite natural and easy to remove them.
Yes. And I agree, and that was kind of like the second part of this question I was going to ask. I mean, I think once we've cleared our chakras or our energy, let's just put it that way, we're running our energy, we're grounded into the planet, we're not only reconnected with our higher self and we're embodying our higher self, we're actually inviting it down into our heart, and we're we're making the changes in our body by raising our vibration to be able to bring more embodiment into this reality, and that's going to help us, basically dissolve the veil that's keeping, the illusion of being separate from our higher self and from our Creator. So I think maybe once we do all that, we get to the point where then we can change. I mean, we always are progressing when we're doing our work. And that's to the point where we can change and be probably where George is at that point, and yourself as well. So thank you very much. And another reason I really had to bring up that point about the grains is because obviously, my higher self is telling me to question it a little bit, but I do have a very personal experience, and that is my son's father died last year suddenly, and he did have what they call a leaky gut syndrome, which the first thing that came to my mind automatically was the GMO grains. I mean, he was a heavy beer drinker, and he didn't eat right, and he liked bread and all those wonderful things. And of course, there was an exit time for him, and I know all about what his history was here, whether it was, invoked by false contracts or not. It was his time. I've actually spoken to him on the other side of the veil through some mediums, which is really cool. I mean, really ones that when we first sat down, they said his name, and he's here, and they described him. So he did say it was his time to go, but I don't want to choose that. I don't want to choose that as my exit point if it's time to go, where you have this, what they call leaky gut syndrome. It does really bore a hole in your gut. We also store a lot of our emotions in our gut, and definitely I've been working on clearing out my what you call gut, the linings. The lining of your gut will hold on to those toxins that you've eaten to protect your body from it. And so, these methods of clearing out your gut are very good advice, and I appreciate you going into that. And I really look forward to that article. I would like to get into the contract revocation part of this program, if you want to. I have written down basically 7 steps if you need me to read them. Otherwise, if you'd like to talk about the part about doing contract revocation, basically getting out of the duality paradigm and revoking agreements and what to do afterwards, I would really appreciate that for our listeners.
Sure. So really a contract revocation is a form of energy clearing. There is an energy around that agreement that has been made. Now, that agreement itself can also have copies and reinstatement clauses, so all of those things need to be addressed. So really, the first thing I would recommend is get into clearing work. Like I said, level 1 of self-clearing is totally free. Level 2 is a nominal fee. Work with that a bit, and once you're comfortable with that, and you've noticed, okay, this thing keeps happening. It doesn't really feel like it's authentic. It doesn't feel like it's me. I feel like there's agreements here around this. Then you basically start with normal energy clearing procedures, which is to get grounded to the Earth core. I do also recommend connecting to the galactic core. I find that a very helpful and supportive energy and a group of beings there. You expand yourself. You bring in ahead of time a galactic vacuum. Just have it handy. Have it waiting on standby. And then you call up the agreement. So, for example, if a person has series of agreements related to religious belief that they are worthless in the eyes of God. That's a big one. A lot of people have that. and that they have agreed to partake in that belief. I mean, basically, that's what a belief system is we agree to believe a thing that someone else has told us. So we call up all of those agreements related to that particular thing. You call them up on all timelines, in all dimensions, densities, levels, realms, and realities, anywhere where the agreement or the copies may have been hidden. You call up all of the reinstatement clauses, the backups and copies of the agreements, any counterparty copies of those agreements. It's kind of funny in a way that it's mirroring a lot of what we see in our law system here on Earth, that there are counterparties to those agreements. These are the beings that are profiting from that agreement. And you state, essentially, from the authority of my sovereign self, I'm declaring all of these agreements null and void. I'm completely revoking these agreements and any and all of the counterparty copies, the reinstatement clauses, backups, mirrors, duplicates, everything previously named. So that's where you start, and then you declare again from your sovereign core, I reclaim all of my energy that has gone into these agreements, and you pull that energy back, you reclaim that energy. Now again, on level 1, there is a whole process for reclaiming energy, as well as in level 2. So you'll have practice. We're not just kind of throwing you out with a couple of outlines here. So you reclaim that energy, and then you send all of the agreements into that galactic vacuum so that it will be taken to the galactic core, where they'll be dissolved and disintegrated after having been briefly analyzed for their content. Because yes, we are unraveling what these astral parasites are doing. We examine all of their machinations so that we can devise counters to them. So you vacuum all of the stuff up into the galactic core. Same thing with any counterparty copies of those agreements. Those get called up and then sent into the vacuum. And at that point, you may experience beings trying to impress their supposed authority on you. They could claim to be just about anything: angels, guides, masters, even the so-called lords of karma. And essentially, you want to just tell those beings right off the bat, I am sovereign and you do not own me. You're all being served notice here that I forbid you from ever affecting my energy again. And that if you try to violate my sovereign space, that I will essentially force you into that galactic vacuum, where you'll have to go through rehabilitation and you'll have to directly face everything that you've done. And I also tell them, look, you're going to have to do it eventually. Your time is running out. Your party is winding down. Might as well do it now. But if you keep trying to cross the boundary of my sovereign space, I am going to send you to that rehabilitation process. Now, I actually consider that galactic vacuum, that trip to the galactic core, I consider that a kindness. I consider it a gift given to these beings.
Yeah, it's either that or turned into space stuff.
Yeah, all right. And, we're not annihilating these beings. That's actually incredibly difficult to do. I don't recommend anyone try that. So we're not trying to annihilate them. We're essentially trying to lend them a helping hand. But to them, it's kind of scary, right? Because they have so much invested in this particular expression of themselves. So a lot of times they will just run away when they see the vacuum coming. Now,
what are you projecting? Are you projecting like a Hoover? Hoover vacuum?
It's a giant tube of light.
A tube of light.
A giant tube of light.
Yeah,
that extends out from the galactic core and just vacuums up everything in its path, basically.
Right. Thank you.
Now, some of them, though, they do want to get out of their crazy hierarchy that they're living in, and they'll actually willingly step into that galactic vacuum. I've even had some of these beings attack me just so that they could get the vacuum. which is kind of
wow.
funny in retrospect. Yeah, right. So yeah, some of them enjoy it. So once you've addressed the agreements and you've pushed back any beings that are trying to resist it, then you get into clearing out any and all imprinting, implants, overlays, subconscious beliefs, any identities that you may have formed around that belief system or those agreements, any attitudes related to it, any unresolved emotions or traumas from the past that may have been intertwined with those agreements. And you just engage a clearing process of dissolving and transmuting those particular layers. And you just ask your sovereign self to basically direct that galactic vacuum throughout your subconscious and unconscious levels of your mind to remove these particular components. And then at that point, after the clearing has been completed, you want to then expand the light of your sovereign self, expand your inner being to upload more of the real you that exists as an eternal being in source reality. You exist there, you always have, you always will, regardless of how far out you've gone into the astral income. Eventually you will get back there. So you expand that light of your true self that fills in the space, essentially, that has been cleared out. And then you can also ask for the restoration of the original agreement that you made in source reality with the source itself to come into this realm and carry that source light. Now, that original agreement is often covered up by many layers of false agreements, but somewhere in there's that original decision that was made to come here and to help, to be one of the so-called boots on the ground, to borrow a terrible military term, but to actually be incarnated, to be here in a body and to engage this process. So you can re-engage that original agreement. And ultimately, all of this, at that point, it's a matter of integrating. You're now integrating more of yourself that you've just uploaded, and you just allow that integration to occur. But the key point that all of this relies on is engaging your willpower, engaging your sovereign will, engaging it even with a bit of forcefulness. If a lot of these beings, they're so disconnected from reality, they're so disconnected from the truth of our interconnectedness that oftentimes they don't even understand why we're upset that they're parasiting off of us, if you can imagine that.
Mm-hmm.
Because
because they don't know.
They've been doing it for so long, right? I mean, look, if a cow suddenly told you, you better quit eating me and my people, or we're going to take some action.
Right. It's a very good analogy.
We would be like, wait, you can talk? No, we would actually we would stop and we would pause and we would go, okay, well, maybe we can work something out. Maybe when it's like, you're about to die of natural causes or something, we could do that. But there would be some negotiation going on, right? We wouldn't just say, whatever, cow, bam, and shoot him in the head. We would have a dialogue. Well, these beings have lost the ability to really negotiate and dialogue and understand. So they don't respond to very much other than force. They understand force really well. They're definitely clear on that regard. So you have to use a little bit of force of will.
Okay. Just real quick, I want to open up in a few minutes for any questions. We don't have anybody in the queue right now. The number is 646-716-8890 if you'd like to ask Cameron a question, or if you just have a comment about what we're talking about. We'll do that for we'll take one or two questions. We only have about 15 minutes left in our show. Did you cover basically reclaiming your energy, Cameron? Did we get that far?
Yes.
After you,
that was one of the things. I know I went through that really quick, and I do apologize to the listeners, but I encourage you to go to ascensionhealth.com, go to the blog, And you can just type in the search box, just type in the word lightworker, and both of those articles will come up. No longer Lightworker 1 and 2. They're quite long because this doesn't exactly lend itself to short, snappy articles. But I would imagine that anybody who's already listened this far, that if they read those articles, they will get quite a bit out of them.
Thank you. Now, before I go into my next question, Larry, did you want to bring in the question we had from the chat room?
Yes, I did. I'm actually, I had that right here, and I'm scrolling up looking for it right now. Okay. Bear with me. I know we're live on air, but bear with me just a second here. I'm looking for it right now, and the browser's not letting me go up that far.
Mine either. I can't remember.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing about being in the now is you can't. I'll go ahead and ask this question while you look it up.
Yeah.
Cameron, I think one of the questions that we all have as we struggle with this reality that we perceive, how can we basically be ascending and still live in this 3D world as we watch ourselves begin to become part of the polarity of the extreme of being, of a high vibration, and we also have to exist in the extreme polarity of being in the densest place right now that we can imagine. We want to basically remove ourselves from the system and stop feeding them with our energy as far as the financial system that they've set up, working as slaves, paying taxes, and basically until we see the changes manifest in our reality, how do we deal with this? Does this just start going away in your own world as you bring in your higher self, or what kind of advice do you have on that?
Well, there's a lot of things that we can do. Excuse me, but to start with, look for ways that you can begin withdrawing from the system. So as an example, start buying things used if you can. Start buying food from farmers at farmers markets. Buy your food from an organic co-op. Grow some food. That's a wonderful thing that you can do, which is very grounding, very therapeutic to grow some of your own food. Barter with people if at all possible, if at all convenient to do so. Begin to do things that are unleashing your creative energies. Do the creative ideas that you've had, engage those ideas, and do it just for the sake of the creation itself. You don't need a reason, you don't need necessarily a profit motive. Obviously, if you have a job that prohibits that, don't do it while you're at work, but in your spare time, engage in your creativity. I like to say that creativity does not need a purpose other than itself. And that's because creativity is often ground out of beings in this matrix. They don't like creativity because if we're putting creative energy into something, that's actually a little bit less energy that's available to the astral parasites as well. So create and share. Give what you can give, but also don't give so much that you compromise yourself. That's really important. Maintain your balance, maintain your grounding, get your feet on the ground as much as you can, at least once a day, and get your bare feet on the ground. Now, if you're living in a city in an apartment way up off of the ground, you can still do grounding exercises. You can energetically ground yourself, but make sure to also get that physical conduit, that physical contact going of feet on the ground or hands touching the ground, and then do your grounding exercise there as well. And really the key is don't believe anything. Stop believing what stop believing what people tell you, because everyone else is just repeating what someone else has repeated to them, and it's just really a chain of beliefs that's been handed down. Rather, examine your beliefs, let go of the ones that don't seem accurate, and be okay with not knowing for a while. There's often going to be times when we just don't know, and we can just say, I don't really know. I'm working on having the experience that will show me the truth behind that thing. So let go of that need to have always a belief about a thing. Just allow yourself to be in the space of not knowing, because really the idea that we know is a massive blockage to learning anything else. Most people think that they know all that they need to know, right? Depending on what the subject is, you'll get that kind of thing from a lot of people because it's trained into us. So just let that go and recognize that there's so much more to our world, to ourselves, to the universe than we can possibly ever know. And that's okay, because the fun of the journey is learning these things, learning about our true selves, learning about the potential that we have, learning about the innate goodness in people. Now, I know you see a lot of crazy stuff in the world. I do recommend, for the most part, disengaging from the news cycle. If you want to see and hear the news, find some aggregator who is just kind of collecting headlines. Skim the headlines and then switch off that site and take a few moments to just contemplate the idea that the majority of what's there is either lies or spin on actual events designed to evoke a certain fear-based mindset in you. So basically stop believing in the news as well. I know that maybe sounds a little out there, right? Like, how could they be lying to us? But there's videos on the internet of CNN faking news correspondents that were supposedly in Iraq during the original Iraq invasion in the 90s. Then they were completely faking the news back then in the 90s, and that trend has continued to this day. They've just gotten better at it. So tune out the manipulations. I would also recommend disengage from prepackaged entertainments, meaning prepackaged creativity, where someone else's creative idea has been completely embodied in a visual, audio presentation, a movie or a TV show, and then that is fed into your consciousness, and then that goes and is stored in your subconscious mind. So external creativity that's just fed to us actually kind of clogs up our own creative energy, kind of blocks our own creative energy. So tune that out and do something creative instead. Create your own stories or read a book. Now, when you read a book, you're using your own mind and your own creative abilities to imagine that scenario and the people and the places that they're in. So you're actually engaging your creative energies much more than if you're just passively watching movies or TV or any kind of big multimedia stuff. So
I see. That's a good point.
Tone that stuff down. Read books. Just contemplate. Just relax. Take time to just do nothing. Now that's actually a big thing that a lot of people have a really hard time with. They don't have seemingly enough time in their life to just relax and do nothing. They'll tell you, well, I can't meditate. And I tell them, well, then don't meditate, but just sit there and don't do anything. Just relax yourself. Let your mind let your mind wander even. That's fine for a while, right? But then after a bit, you should be able to kind of let the thoughts go at least for a couple of seconds. Just relax enough to just let everything go for a little bit. It only takes 20 or 30 minutes, and then you can get back to whatever else it is that you need to do. But for a little while, let everything go, even if that's just before bed, right? Switch off the computer a little bit early. Go to your bed and just sit in bed for a while and just do nothing until you're sleepy enough to lie down. And of course, when you're going to sleep, also make sure that you have stated, and I do this every night, I am sovereign and I do not permit any beings to interfere with my dream state, and I will respond accordingly to any incursions into my sovereign space. So you set your sovereign boundaries at all times, including when you go to sleep. That's very important. People receive a lot of programming in the dream state, so you want to be proactive about taking a stand against any attempts to do that.
Great.
And hey, Cameron, real quick, we have a question from the chat room. Somebody wanted to know if you had any recommendations to expose and or defeat the extra interdimensional beings that seem to be pulling the strings of their service to self-minions that currently are running the prison planet.
So to expose the minions themselves?
Yes, or to defeat them, expose them. Yeah, that was kind of the gist of the question.
Sure. Just recognize that the minions rule based on human ignorance. They rely on our unwillingness to put the time and energy in penetrating their deceptions. So I would say, first of all, penetrate those deceptions and then tell people, tell your friends, but only tell them as much as they can tolerate. Because most people who are living the lie, living the matrix in, I want to say intoxication, right? They're drunk on the matrix in a sense. They don't want to get sobered up, right? They want to keep living that ignorant, blissful state. They think that their ignorance is bliss. So just be mindful of how much you can reveal to these people, and maybe start with something that, if they don't already know, they probably should know. Start them off with some 9/11 stuff. Show them, look, there's no way these airplanes caused these buildings to turn into dust. There's clearly were explosives. There's all kinds of videos showing windows being blown out as the explosives went off. I mean, there's just a ton of info there.
We just had a show on that on 9/11.
Sure, yeah. So start them off on that. 9/11 was essentially these manipulators shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, they accomplished a lot as a result of it, but it also snapped a lot of people out of their slumber. Because, I mean, well, I can't say the exact reaction I had. I was talking to a friend at the time, but to paraphrase it, I basically said, "Holy cow! There's no way that those two airplanes caused both of those buildings to collapse in basically the same manner into dust. This is cow poop."
Right. That's a good way to put it. Thank you.
Yeah. So that was my reaction. Much obviously more intense than that. And a lot of other people had that. A lot of people didn't want to go there in their minds, so they kind of went along with the story. But most people know on some level that was a major
F up
deception. Yeah, a major deception. Yeah, and so you can start them off with that, and then maybe help them see other deceptions. Talk to them. Vaccines are also a nice entry point for a lot of people into the truth. Show them the vaccine deception. Show them the information about the damage that vaccine has been doing to children, the skyrocketing autism rates. Maybe talk to them about food. Maybe food is the way to get them interested, right? Talk to them about what's good for the gut, what's bad for the gut. But be a little careful on that one, because the gluten addiction is very strong, and you may get some unwanted pushback on that one. But again, you just find that entry point for people to help them see more of the truth and more of the truth. So yeah, the earthly minions, definitely we need to pierce that layer of manipulation, because most people aren't necessarily going to be interested in the types of manipulations that we've been discussing on the show today. This is something that's a little more specialized. So for a lot of people out there, you need to tackle something that is more physical minion related.
Here, and on that note, Michelle, I think we've got a very special caller on the line. I think it might even be our very own Greg Prescott, webmaster and creator of N5D.
Hi, Cameron, Michelle, and Larry.
Hey, boss, what's up?
Nothing.
Hi, Greg.
First of all, hi, baby. Hi, Cameron.
Hi, Greg.
First of all, I want to tell you all how much I'm enjoying this show. The time's gone by quickly. And also, Cameron, thank you for sharing your article with us on N5D.com.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad you've enjoyed it.
Definitely. Now, in the intro, Michelle mentioned that your higher self basically guided you to help awaken others. So how do you differentiate contacting your higher self versus contacting you or listening to your spirit guides or angels?
Sure. So your higher self, or what I really call the sovereign self, it comes up from inside of you. It's a kind of a knowingness that you have to either acknowledge or put some effort into pushing back down again. It's something that you can't necessarily ignore. You can, but you shouldn't. It's the kind of thing that you have to really put effort into ignoring. So the sovereign self communicates also in feelings, in symbolic interpretations, and it's more subtle. It's not necessarily something that's smacking a person on the head, but it's a subtle urge that comes up from inside, and it will keep kind of bubbling up from within. That's probably the best way I can really describe that. Versus
that would make sense because
versus
more
right, yeah. Versus contact from astral beings will feel more like an idea inserted into your head.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another quick question. During the near-death experience, many people have reported seeing benevolent angels. Are these angels really, really benevolent, or are they basically demons in disguise? And I'll let you answer this one. I'll go off the line right now. Just listen. But thank you once again for taking my call.
All right. Thanks for popping in, Greg. I appreciate that as well. So, yeah, I consider these beings posers. They're parasites posing as angels. That they've set up this entire religious idea. They've indoctrinated generations upon generations to believe in the idea of a hierarchical organization with a very wrathful, punishing God at the top, and then angelic minions and hierarchical layers underneath that. So, to me, they are consummate actors. They are probably the best deceivers in the universe. So we just have to be really super discerning and not just believe a being. Don't take them at face value. Really question them. Really make sure that their intent is coming from the right place. And observe how you feel in contact with these beings. Because if you're feeling spaced out and loopy and ungrounded, that's a sign that a person is getting that astral narcotic effect that I mentioned before. It shouldn't feel like a narcotic effect. It should feel expansive but grounded. It should feel empowering and enlivening. You should feel in every sector of your body, in all three of your brains, you should feel this true, loving, benevolent, underlying motive for your own good. Not to, as opposed to the astral beings, they are often using people. They're often putting people in situations where they have to somehow give up something or compromise something. They have to do some mission, for example, right? That's the light worker paradigm that I had abandoned. They are essentially users, and so you just need to step out of that usury. So it's a very different feeling. So just gauge all of these beings who want to contact you. And if you're not sure, just tell them all, you know what? I'm not taking any calls right now. I just want to be left alone for a while. I did that for months. I just was not listening to any beings at all. I just said, you know, everybody leave me alone, not taking any calls. And, you know, that's effective as well. I wouldn't recommend it forever, but it can be something you can engage for a little while.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the question, Greg. I appreciate that. And basically, we're getting to the end of our show, and I just wanted to make a point here. The Matrix has layers of multiple agreements that Cameron has written about in his articles. There's layers of beliefs also that hide the true self. Basically, when we are ascending, we are stripping these illusions. We the main thing that we all need to embody is the fact that we are infinite expressions of the one source, and we are existing through our consciousness, and we're raising our consciousness, and doing this, stripping these layers. You've heard it's been called peeling back the layers of the onion before, but it takes work. And it's fun work, because every time you do something, you feel it, and then you are opened up to a whole new level. It's almost like you have help, the people that are basically not people, but beings that are helping you work through this. Maybe your higher self, maybe other beings on the other side of the demiurge there, that are just basically wouldn't let you have more than you can handle, and don't really let you move past a certain point until you clear what you need to clear. So I just have felt that you've been a very important guest to have on our show, because there are many people right now listening to false light teachings that are stating, ascensions on our doorstep. And while that may somewhat be true, it really starts from within and with the work that you do for yourself. This is an individual journey, and we all have energy to clear. And I want to thank you for sharing valuable information on our show. And for those who are interested in getting, sometimes we get to the point where we really need some professional help. I mean, we can really be screwed with so bad that it's just hard to come up for air and be able to think clearly. And so if they want a private clearing or healing session with you, can you explain a little bit briefly about what that entails and how to reach you for that?
Sure. So I'll just go over that very briefly, because the info is on my site in more detail. I do want to preface this by stating that my current schedule is booked out many months in advance. I'm actually, I think, booking in May right now, next year.
Okay.
So do bear that in mind.
But there's a lot of free stuff. There's a lot of free stuff.
There's a lot of free stuff.
Maybe start
absolutely.
there. Yeah. Maybe
exactly.
Start there.
Yeah. So start with the free stuff. Absolutely. Because that will form the basis of the work that we'll do together.
Right.
And in one-on-one sessions, I will basically connect with you. I will talk about what's going on, and right. I will feel into the situation. I'll get information and symbolic guidance from your sovereign self, and then we'll go in together and work on clearing what needs to be cleared, as well as uploading more of yourself. And we will simply go through the process together. I will also record it so that you can go through it again to deepen what was done. And essentially my goal with all my clients is to get everyone to the point where they are confident with clearing themselves, that we've cleared together enough, and that they no longer need me. That's my ultimate goal with all of my clients. So.
And they reach you through your website?
Yes, so you can get to me from ascensionhelp.com. There's a contact form there. All of the self-clearing stuff is there as well. So, again, it's level 1 is entirely free. There's a lot of articles in the blog. Start with No Longer a Lightworker, and then maybe just go to the main page and work your way back. It would be my recommendation there.
Okay, and you also have a quick website called geniusbrainpower.com, which is a brainwave entrainment website where you can work on perhaps deprogramming and reprogramming your brain. Is that correct?
To an extent.
The belief systems and...
the brainwave entrainment is essentially to help a person achieve that deeper meditative state while remaining conscious. So that deeper theta state, for example, or even a delta state, while maintaining consciousness. And then there is also the other end of the brainwave spectrum, where you're entraining to higher frequencies so that you're stimulating your brain's hemispheres to work more efficiently together, to work more powerfully at those higher frequencies so that you can be more effective in your day-to-day environment. And then in the evening, you can come home and put on a meditative track, get into that deeper meditative state. Now, that in and of itself does not necessarily produce clearing. It can to an extent, but to really get into the clearing, it takes conscious effort and application of will on a regular basis. But Genius Brain Power is a very helpful package I'm quite happy with it. Most people are quite happy with it. If for whatever reason the entrainment tones don't do their job for you, there are people whose brains simply don't respond to that type of entrainment. If that's the case, then I offer money back on that as well. So there's no risk to the individual on that one, and it's quite helpful.
Okay. All right. Larry, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still with you. Thank you, Cameron, for coming on, and I've really enjoyed listening to your flow and your calm, laid-back, yet all-knowing tone, and I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Very, very great information.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I don't claim to be all-knowing, but, I figured a couple things out along the way, so I'd like to share that.
Well, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
I too, as you can tell, Larry and I are pretty laid back. I get a little excited sometimes, and sometimes I get on my soapbox and it just starts flowing through me. But I knew from listening to your interviews, you have radio shows. There's like maybe 6 or 7 of them that people can listen to further listen to your voice. I believe your voice has a very healing. It has some healing codes in it as well. And I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I bid you a good evening and want to go ahead and let you get on with the rest of your business because I know how busy you are.
Well, thank you both very much. It's been a great show. You've been wonderful hosts, and maybe we'll do it again in the future.
Absolutely. Much
that.
love
thank
to you. Yeah.
Okay, good night.
Namaste.
All right, good night. Take care.
Larry.
Well, Michelle, that was great. How calming. I mean, I love the flow. I was really nervous. I had butterflies like you did before the show, and yet I was really excited, and yet, he covered a lot of ground, and I just loved the tone all the way through. It was a great show, as always.
Yeah. I was just really excited because, like I said, Greg and I, we happened to hit this point where we were coming, we're shown in waves of things that we need to share. And one of the waves started with the Wingmakers and the Robert Morning Sky and, basically this Archon thing with John Lash. And, what you got to do with all that stuff is, like I said, you have to take what really resonates with you, and you can only write about what you feel is the truth. And basically, if you experience some of that in your life, that's what you're going to be drawn to say, hey, we need to pay attention to this. And that's what basically we do. And so, but his, we really resonated with what he was saying, his take on it, and I like the way he uses the word ankle biters instead of archons, and I just really was stoked about having him on and being able to write articles around it as well. And this is kind of a series that we started. And next week, we're going to continue this discussion with Robert Stanley. We have an article by Robert on N5D.com. And on October 2nd, we plan to talk about Wes Penray. Now, we invited Wes Penray from, he has the Wes Penray Papers. We invited him to come on the show, but at this time he's very busy working on his next paper, and he has graciously accepted questions from us. So I posted on N5D Facebook page for anybody out there who would like to ask a question about the Wes Penray the papers themselves, or if you want to ask any similar questions. You're going to be hearing a lot of similar questions that I asked Cameron today on that show, which is going to be after the October 2nd, which is, I guess, the 9th. So please submit those questions to me on my Facebook page, Michelle Walling, or you can submit them on the N5D Facebook page. Just go to message and submit them that way. And following up on the Robert Stanley, and if that wasn't enough, Wes Penray, we're going to have Evie Lorgan on our show. I'm not sure. I think she's October 9th. I'm sorry. I think West Penray must be the next show after that. I'll get it all right, though. I don't have that in front of me, just going by my memory here. But, all of that's coming up, and that's very exciting because we are shedding light on this false light doctrine going on this matrix. And that is how we are going to win this battle and ascend, is by being the warriors of the true light, the warriors of truth, the warriors
Absolutely.
that are sharing with people. And, the more information people get, the more they can work on themselves, make decisions for themselves.
Absolutely, Michelle. And I just wanted to say real quick that the West Penray papers, when we posted them before, I know you certainly have, and I certainly have, the response from them has just been great, I know, on Facebook. And I would encourage everybody out there, if you haven't had a chance to take a look at them, please go to N5D. And I noticed you had them posted on the Cosmic Awakening Show, our homepage on Facebook, and I would encourage anybody and everybody to please take a look at these and, formulate any questions that you may have regarding them. I just wanted to echo that sentiment.
Yeah, this is your chance, because this is, yes, we have all the answers within, but hell, if I could access all the answers within right now, I wouldn't be asking the questions. So
very true, partner, very true.
Yeah, and I do believe in the day that we'll totally, as we do this work, and as we understand how it is that we're tied into the universe, how it is that we're tied into the galaxy, to the solar system, to the planet, and how it is that we exit this false light matrix system just by basically shedding light on it, knowing what it is, where it is, what it's for, and making those contract revocations that we talked about. You can find out more about that on Cameron's website. Stay tuned to n5d.com for more articles on all this. And Larry, I just want to thank you so much for being my partner here and for holding the energy. Sometimes you don't get a lot of chance to talk, and I apologize for that.
Oh, no, don't apologize. It's my Blu-ray energy. And, I just want to say that, stay tuned, everybody, because we're on a mission, and our mission won't stop till we get those answers waiting at the top. And here we go. And Michelle Walling, I just love you as a partner. You're so great and so informative, and your energies keep me calm, and it's just really a great thing. And I can't wait to continue on this journey with you and in 5D. It's been a true pleasure, and I know people can say that at the end of a show as a cliche, but I mean it. It really comes from the heart, and thank you so much for being my partner on here.
Aw, thank you too, Larry. And I want to remind everybody to keep looking up to the sky, but stay centered in your heart. Focus right now on moving your energy from your head into your heart. I want to send love and healing out to all of our listeners out there live and on the recording. And with that, I bid you a good night.
A big cosmic dating game kiss to everybody. Mwah. Namaste.